Welcome to the Teen Take, where Gen Z breaks down politics in plain language. I'm your host, Thaddeus. We have a lot to talk about, starting with the information that there has been another shooting by federal agents in Minnesota. You may remember last week when I discussed the shooting of Renee Good on January 7th by ICE agents. On Saturday, Alex Pretti was shot and killed by federal agents, part of an ICE operation. The Department of Homeland Security released a statement on X on Saturday following the shooting. I'm not going to read the whole statement out here, but I did want to take out some key sentences because the wording that the DHS uses is key and does matter. One sentence states, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Notice how the statement doesn't specify whether the weapon was raised, pointed, or even visibly present. Another sentence claims that the officer, quote, attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted, end quote. The DHS then justifies the shooting by stating, fearing for his life and the lives and safety of his fellow officers, an agent fired defensive shots. Finally, the statement says, quote, about 200 rioters arrived at the scene and began to obstruct and assault law enforcement. Crowd control measures were deployed for the safety of the public and law enforcement. See, now I watched the video myself. However, I will not show it or play its audio here. What follows is my analysis of the video compared directly to what the claims made by the DHS. The DHS claims that officers attempted to disarm Pretti. However, the video shows that he was restrained and pinned to the ground by multiple officers. If disarmament was the objective, that action should have been completed while he was fully immobilized. The claim that an agent was fearing for his life and the lives and safety of his fellow officers is not supported by what is visible in the video. Before shots were fired, Pretti was already pinned to the ground and by several officers. I counted at least 5. Prior to this, the video shows an officer forcefully pushing another individual identified by the DHS as a, quote, illegal alien, end quote, to the ground. Pretti appears to intervene in an attempt to help the individual up, at which point he was pulled away, restrained, and pinned to the ground. At that moment, the video does not show Pretti posing an immediate lethal threat to officers and the safety of the public around him. After Pretti is pinned to the ground, at least 10 shots can be heard, and they appeared to be fired by agents as they backed away, leaving Pretti's body in view while instructing bystanders to back away. At this point in time, there are 3 things to separate: what the DHS claims, what the video shows, and what we still don't know. The next question is, what should actually happen? An independent investigation should be conducted and is essential to maintain public trust. The body cam footage of officers on the scene should be released in full and not selectively, and all officers involved should be placed on administrative leave pending review, which is standard procedure. However, none of these things will happen, and justice for Pretti will remain at standby. This incident, combined with the shooting of Renee Good, is escalating tensions in Minnesota and increasing protests around the United States. Speaking of Good, the officer who shot her will still and has not faced justice. Alex Pretti will be remembered as an I.C.U. nurse and as a kind person. What I believe is that obviously I should stand down immediately and should take accountability for what they've done and have a nonpartisan organization audit them regarding numbers, tactics, public trust, and more. Whether it's on the streets or in the courtroom, the same question keeps coming up: who gets held accountable? That question is at the center of the Trump v. Lisa Cook. Lisa Cook is a governor of the Federal Reserve, an independent government organization that Trump has targeted in the past. She was appointed under President Biden and is the first black woman to serve on the Federal Reserve. The Trump v. Cook case centers around whether a president can fire a sitting governor of the Federal Reserve for political reasons or just for specific reasons of misconduct. On Wednesday, the Supreme Court heard both sides of the argument. Paul Clement, who represents Lisa Cook, argued that Cook should have been given notice of the allegations, should have been given an opportunity to respond, and that the independence of the Federal Reserve should be protected. John Sawyer, who represented Trump, argued that allegations made against Cook were sufficient cause for removal. You may remember that 2 Mondays ago, I talked about another governor of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, who was also being targeted. These individuals are being targeted because they refused to lower interest rates when the president wanted. They didn't appeal the preferences and wants of the president. However, they did take their best assessment of the evidence and facts of the market and raise accordingly, which is what the job as a governor of the Federal Reserve should do. Trump is just mad and is attempting to hurt his political enemies, and they aren't having it. And I say and commend the efforts of Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook. Now, let's shift from the courtroom to the world stage, the Middle East. In a bold move, Trump launched his plan to finally have peace in the Middle East, and specifically in Gaza. His plan is to create a new international body, the Board of Peace. Its purpose is to oversee the reconstruction efforts in Gaza and the aftermath of the Israel-Hamas war. It may be too early for that, still seeing that the war isn't over and that Israel has broken multiple ceasefire deals multiple times. On Thursday in Davos, Switzerland, for the World Economic Forum, Trump held his signing ceremony for this Board of Peace. Those who attended were representatives from the United Arab Emirates, Argentina, and about 16 other countries. What's more notable is what countries weren't present. For example, the Russian Federation received an invitation to join, but they declined. That fact that they were invited to promote peace in the Middle East is still crazy to me. Canada also received an invitation, however, that was swiftly withdrawn after statements made by its Prime Minister, Mark Carney, at the World Economic Forum. What is even more notable is that there weren't a lot of European nations in attendance. The United Kingdom said that they are not ready to join at this stage. France declined and raised concerns about the board structure and scope. Spain, Norway, and Sweden, along with a dozen other countries, also declined to join the board. To France's point, the structure of the board is very odd. The charter doesn't have term limits for chairmen, so Trump can theoretically serve as chairman as long as he lives and will still be at the center of foreign policy well after he leaves the Oval Office. What is even more surprising to me is how a nation joins the Board of Peace. To be a permanent member, a nation must make a contribution of at least $1 billion to the board's future initiatives. If a country doesn't want to pay the high price tag just yet, they can enter a 3-year free trial without ads to gain membership. I already know that this board is going to be way out of control, and we'll see where this board takes us in the future. Speaking of foreign policy, let's move to updates in the Greenland situation in the past week. Trump, in a recent text message thread, revealed the true reason why he's fighting so hard to acquire Greenland, the Danish territory. The true reason being that the Norwegians decided not to give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. Now you may ask, who actually gives out the Nobel Peace Prize? And did the Norwegians decide not to give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize? The short answer is yes and no, and a little bit of kind of. The Nobel Peace Prize is given by an independent Norwegian committee selected by the Norwegian Parliament. However, the Norwegian government has no authority over who wins the Peace Prize. The detail was restated multiple times in the text message thread. In more Greenland news, Trump and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte have reached a deal regarding Greenland without the Danish or the Greenlandic. Now this deal isn't in writing or even 100% agreed upon, it's just a verbal agreement that the two parties have. The Danish and the Greenlandic have expressed over and over again that Mark Rutte does not have the permission to negotiate on behalf of them on the terms of Greenland. However, as a result of the, quote, framework of a deal, end quote, Trump dropped his threats of tariffs and said that the United States will not take Greenland by force. According to reports, the plan involves updating defense agreements, enhanced NATO involvement in Arctic security, and barring Russia and China from certain investments in Greenland. Once again, neither the Danish or the Greenlandic have given permission to Mark Rutte to negotiate on their behalf and have expressed that sovereignty and territorial integrity are red lines. To the first point, in the Greenland section, if that is the true reason that Trump really wants Greenland, then Trump needs to stop throwing a fit and needs to be happy that he got a participation trophy. To the second, there is no, quote, framework of a deal, end quote, without the Danish or the Greenlandic, and Mark Rutte stepped out of line when he went behind the backs of Denmark and its territory. That is all I have for you today in this episode of the Teen Take. I will keep you updated in any of these topics of news and anything else that may come up in the next week. Stay safe, stay smart, stay wise, and I hope that you have a wonderful week. I know that I am, so I hope to see you back next week in this episode of the Teen Take.